Hi, 6th grade social studies teachers. My name is Kelly, and I'm going to talk you through the Agriculture and Human Civilization unit. This is the second unit for 6th grade social studies and follows our Intro to World Regions and Culture unit. This unit has 10 lessons and should take somewhere between 15 and 18 days to complete. There's a unit question map that you can access to see the structure of the compelling and supporting questions, and there's also a unit slideshow to help you move through the unit. In this unit, students are going to focus around the idea of whether or not the development of agriculture was good for humans. Students are going to spend most of their time learning about the Paleolithic and Neolithic. We're going to use the grape methods, and then we're going to move into more about Mesopotamia. You can see we have a variety of social studies standards: inquiry, behavioral science, economics, geography, history, reading and history, and writing and history. We have a decent list of unit targets and learning objectives. So we can see here the unit compelling question, as well as our 4 supporting questions. What did people do before the development of agriculture? How did environmental changes and new technologies affect the development of agriculture? How did the development of agriculture in Mesopotamia lead to the development of writing? And what were the consequences of agriculture for humans? This unit is split into individual lessons. You can see there are 10 here, and the suggested number of days for each one. Lesson 1 is all about the benefits and costs of innovation. This lesson doesn't directly tie to a supporting question, but it does get students thinking about the effects of developments and advancements. This lesson begins with an interactivity of asking students to generate a list of the top 5 or top 10 greatest inventions since the wheel. There's a list available on slide 2 that you can compare this to once students have created it. And then we ask students to look through and consider the benefits and the costs of these different innovations. Then we start looking at the compelling question and focusing on the innovation of agriculture. Then we give students time to generate an initial response to the compelling question. Lesson 2 is about the Paleolithic era and takes 2 to 3 days. This one centers around supporting question 1, what did people do before the development of agriculture? So we begin with introducing supporting question 1, and we review the Thinking Like a Social Scientist cards. Then we move into a prehistoric survival simulation, in which students can move through and make decisions about where they want to live, the type of shelter, the type of food, and each decision has a benefit or a consequence. Then we spend time learning about the early humans in the Paleolithic time, and we start figuring out when agriculture started to show up. This is followed by a little bit of information on human migration, where there's a video featured there. Then students work on a global journey activity, and there's additional resource of human communities populate the earth if needed. Lesson 3 is about the Neolithic era and takes 1 day. We're focusing on supporting question 2. The resource that we use for this lesson says supporting question 1 on the page, as it comes from the New York State Social Studies Resource Toolkit, but this actually goes along with supporting question 2. So if it confuses the kiddos, just cross it off. So we begin this lesson with kind of a timeline. We're reviewing the end of the Paleolithic era and taking a look at what comes up next, again centering around the development of agriculture. We move into learning about the Neolithic times, and we use the student resource page to find out more about it. So within the student resource page, we have various innovations that happened within the Neolithic time in Mesopotamia, most of which are related to agriculture. Another one looks at the average global temperature data. Then we have images of some Neolithic farming tools with a little bit of information below, and then an additional agriculture tool that students can take a look at and compare with the previous ones to see about the different advancements. In lesson 4, we review the grapes method for studying civilizations. So in this one, we have a variety of options for how to review the grapes activity. Pick whichever works best for you and your students. Lesson 5, we continue on to the geography, or the G of grapes, of Mesopotamia. So we're going to explore the geographic features of the Fertile Crescent, and we're going to really see what happened in Mesopotamia and the effects of agriculture on that civilization. So we take a look at supporting question 3, we break it down for the important pieces. Then we use maps of the Fertile Crescent to find out more about the types of geography that are available, spending some time focusing on the 2 main rivers in the area. In lesson 6, we hit the R, P, and S, so the religion, the politics, and society. So we start with the birth of farming video, or the invention of farming from Edpuzzle. They're the same video, it just works easier if you use the first one. And we spend some time talking about how farming had other effects in terms of how people interacted, some of those good, some of those bad. Then we move into studying the politics, religion, and society. Lesson 7, we're taking a look at the achievements of the civilization in Mesopotamia. In this case, we have connections to agriculture, economics, specifically the early forms of trade, and then we can also compare the secondary source of the text to the supporting question 3 resources or the primary source. Lesson 8 is about the consequences, focusing on the consequences of agriculture for humans. It begins with a quick review of positive and negative consequences. Not all consequences have to be bad. And then we take a look at the supporting question 4 student resources to help figure out the answer. So one of the consequences is going to be related to population. And as you can see, we have quite the increase in population, which is good in that there are more people, more innovations, but is also bad because that's a bigger strain on our resources. Then we can also see the development and the improvements made in housing. And we can also see the population and death rates as it is related to various elements of agriculture, changes in technology, and various diseases that pop up as we have more and more people around. Lesson 9 focuses on the conquering of Mesopotamia and how various invaders influenced the culture already present there. We can begin with the birth of farming video and review that and the negatives that came from the rise of farming, such as warfare and fighting over land. And then that can bring us to a discussion over invaders. Now within that, we can look at Babylon and Hammurabi's code, we can look at other invaders, and we can look at the Phoenicians. All of these will provide information that we can add to our grapes notes. Students might want to notate which civilization belonged with the different changes. Lesson 10 is our summative, and in this one we have a written argument over the compelling question of whether or not the development of agriculture was good for humans. I would recommend taking some time to review the concept and review the materials learned before moving into either an argument paper or a claims evidence reasoning structure. One aspect that needs to be covered in this is Standard 10, in which peers review each other's work for credibility. This could be done within the revision process or once the work has been finished. I hope this was a helpful resource as you get ready to instruct this unit. Be sure to reach out to your PLC leader, instructional coach, or curriculum facilitator if you have any questions or in need of any support.